The variance and the standard deviation are measures of dispersion. In other words, it tells us how spread out our data values are. The standard deviation is denoted by sigma if you're working with population data, and it's denoted by S if you're working with sample data. The variance is simply the square of the standard deviation, so it's sigma squared if we're working with population data and S squared if we're working with sample data. As we're more likely to work with sample data, we use the following formula to calculate the variance. While this formula looks very complicated, it's actually very simple. It's just telling us to deduct the mean of the data set from each one of the data values, square those values, and then add them all up. And as the last step, we divide it by the number of observations minus 1. So if you had to write out this formula, it would look as follows. So it will be x1 minus x bar squared plus x2 minus x bar squared plus x3 minus x bar squared, and we'd continue with this until we get to the last data value in our data set, which will be xn. And we then divide this by the number of observations in our data set minus n. So if we apply this formula to our data set on the right here, each one has an x value. The number of observations in this data set is 4, and the mean is also 4. We calculated the mean in the previous video. So if you had to calculate the variance for this data set, it would just look as follows. It'll be 1 minus 4 squared plus 3 minus the mean, which is 4 squared, plus 5 minus the mean squared, plus that last data value, which is 7 minus the mean squared, divided by n, which is 4 minus 1. So this would give us minus 3 squared plus minus 1 squared plus 1 squared plus 3 squared, and 4 minus 1 at the bottom is 3. This, if you take the square of 3, it becomes, the negative becomes a positive. That becomes 9 plus 1 plus 1 plus 9 divided by 3. This is 20 divided by 3. That gives us 6,67. So the variance of our data set is 6,67. It means that the standard deviation is the square root of the variance. So that would mean that this standard deviation of this data set is the square root of 6,67, and that gives us 2.58. So this is our standard deviation, and this is the variance.